and welcome to this edition of the Islands That Sports Talk. I'm your host, Earl Baston. Joining me this evening, I have the pleasure of announcing the Minister of Sport, Senator Owen Darrell. Good evening, sir. How are you this evening?
Good evening, Mr. Baston. Good evening to your watching and listening audience.
Yes.
Pleased to finally be here.
Yeah, it's been 5 months. Long enough?
Well, I know that you had a lot to talk about, so I had to make sure I had a lot of time to give you. But I am happy to finally be here, Mr. Baston.
Yes, thank you for taking the time. Now let's actually get into it. I mean, you were put into the position of the minister responsible for sport back in October. What are some of the things that stand out for you from the time you were put as the minister to today, March 14th?
Well, as you would attest to, Mr. Baston, as we've had multiple conversations, that I really took pride in actually hitting the ground running. I have an awesome, I want to start to say I had an awesome team around me here in the Department of Youth, Sport and Recreation, as well as the team that's here in the Ministry of Youth, Culture and Sport. And one of the things I did say from the very beginning is that I wanted to be visible in the community. I wanted to support local sport. And I know we can get into support a little later, but I wanted to support with my presence. There are sports that I have heard about that I've never actually attended. As you attest to, I attended the field hockey this weekend. And that's a sport that I may be ashamed to say that I had never attended. So I have been getting around and making my rounds and being able to support, because support doesn't always come in the form of financial support. And there's a lot of things that I've learned and a lot of trinkets of sport that I've been able to assist with and bring awareness to simply by being present at some of these events and talking to the organizers that put a lot of work into their sports and assisting athletes in Bermuda.
Like you said, you hit the ground running. October was busy, right through to Christmas was busy, New Year's and all. What stands out for you?
What stands out for me is that, first of all, I will tell you this. We have 25 national sports governing bodies. And there were bodies on here that I knew were part of the sporting landscape, but I did not know that this department and this ministry actually supported them, and the actual support that we actually did give. So, you would have heard, Mr. Baston, that someone took a swipe at me on day one of me being in this role, and saying that I did not know sport. And I actually hit back and I said, yeah, I actually know a little bit about sport. But I actually am proud to say that 5 months in, I've actually gotten to different sporting bodies and learned and gained a lot more knowledge about the entire sporting landscape about Bermuda. One of the highlights, I will tell you, you asked me about what of the standout and highlights, was a female, I guess it was the Women in Sport event that I went to back in, I think it was November. And you'd be amazed at the females in this country that are doing great work in sports, whether they be athletes, whether they be on different associations and boards, or even in official capacities. So that was a highlight of the women in sport, and we were able to highlight our new director in sport, who's a female. So there have been a lot of highlights in 5 months, and it seems like a lot longer than 5 months, Mr. Baston, but in 5 months, I can tell you that it's been a steep learning curve, and I've been excited and to bounce around to different sporting events and just have conversations. I mean, one example I give you was the equestrian event. I can tell you I've taken my son to look at horses before, but never on that scale, where in today's society we could actually compete in equestrian events around the region without actually having to take your horse off the island. So that was actually a learning experience for me as well.
Yeah, well, for years that was a costly thing, and we tended at times not to compete. But you did mention we have 25. Is that 25 recognized by the ministry sports governing bodies in Bermuda?
Yes, absolutely.
So let me ask you, what is the process of being recognized by the ministry? If you can help me there.
Well, in the first instance, you would reach out to the Department of Sport and you would ask them for an application form to start the process of becoming considered to being a national sports governing body. Once you complete that application form, you send in your application to the Department of Youth, Sport, and Recreation. Um, and then there's a period where they assess your application. They assess all of the requirements that are needed on that application, and they get back to you. So just for a timeline of events, the applications go out and they're released in January. The applications are then uh, sent
Process.
back. The deadline was actually at the end of February. And as we are currently in the process where they're going through checking all the requirements. And some of these bodies that would have sent in applications will be informed relatively soon, probably in the next week or so, whether they have been successful in being recognized as a national sports governing body or not. So go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let me
So
ask you.
one of the things is that from the surface, an individual may say, "Well, I have a body. I have 50 people that are part of it. Why can't I just be a national sports governing body?" And part of it is some of the nuts and bolts that you must have, whether it be sporting activity, your organization's history, your organizational structure. Um, and one of the big things that I'm really happy to see on any application is that you have to have a junior development program.
Mm,
Because what we don't want is, the government is supporting and funding and assisting your national sports governing body, and in 3 years it fades away. That's not necessarily a good investment in sport.
sure. Well, let me ask you, because you said the forms go out in January, they are returned by February. What is the penalty for either being late? Well, being late. What is the penalty for being late with your application?
Well, unfortunately, the penalty is that you have to wait until the next cycle. I mean, and there's it's very intricate details that go into this, because once we have our recognized national sports governing bodies, then the next step, Mr. Basin, is when governing bodies actually request funding. And
Mhm,
we have applications that go out in August to request funding for national sports governing bodies, and that's in this fiscal year. And what happens is, if you come on and you want to be recognized as a national sports governing body in September, it puts the whole allocation of funds out of whack. It may not be fair to others who have, put in a solid year, and
mhm.
you jump in and say, "Well, I've got this event I want to go to in December. I want funding, so let me see if I can scramble my application together in September, and quickly become a national sports governing body." And quite frankly, Mr. Basie, with the work that the staff are putting in, and I know they go to great lengths to make sure that it is a process that is legitimate, and I wouldn't like them to be cutting corners, you know,
Sure.
halfway
And as
through.
far as you know, it's a once a year application.
It is, yes.
Okay, so if someone missed the deadline, they have to wait to the following year.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Or I'm sorry, not someone, but an organization. What would you say to the organization or the athletes that if their registration is missed, what happens with the athletes of the sport?
That unfortunately that is um, out of our hands. I mean, when we put this policy in place,
Hmm.
I'm sure, and a lot of times I've heard you use this word, integrity of the process.
Hmm.
And if we want these national sports guarding bodies to have integrity and follow the criteria that we've put in place,
Hmm.
once you start making arbitrary decisions to cut corners and make exceptions here and make exceptions there, you are way outside of the parameters of integrity, and I think that's very important, especially when it comes to how you're going to allocate taxpayer funds.
Good. I have to agree with you in that regard. Yeah. So let's talk about, let's go into a bit about when you were giving your budget brief for the upcoming year. You had some highlights in there about sport that kind of stands out, especially elite funding. Can you just elaborate a little bit on those points that you were making in that brief?
Well, as you said in the beginning, I am the Minister of Youth, Culture, and Sport. And this ministry actually is broken up into three different parts when we talk about the budget. It's the ministry core, it's the Department of Youth, Culture, and Sport. I'm sorry, the Department of Youth, Sport, and Recreation, and then it's the Department of Culture. And out of those three departments which sit under the ministry, I want to say, and I'm sure you and your listening audience would be happy to know that there were funds that were reallocated from other parts of the ministry to go specifically to the department that houses sport. And you may say, well, you might have heard my press conference because I know you were there. And that those funds are specifically going to go to one, helping organizations as they use, this is national sports governing bodies that are competing on the international level with increased usage of the national stadium. One of it is actually going to go to further assisting elite and high-performing athletes, as well as helping to further develop the long-term athletic development program. So if you want to kind of put that in a cap, I know that sounds like a mouthful. Basically, if your headline tomorrow you wanted to put up, and I'm not telling you what to put in your headlines, but it should be something to the effect of the Ministry of Youth, Culture, and Sport has allocated further funds to the development of sport in Bermuda.
Yeah. Well, if you want to raise $2.50, you'll probably read that tomorrow morning.
Well, not if you get it up tonight, you can beat them to it.
Oh, no. I don't want to deprive them. They're already taking enough of my stuff, so I'll have to run with that. But let me ask you then, when you say you're allocating funds for elite athletes,
yes,
who decides who is an elite athlete? Is that the sporting bodies, and how does the ministry kind of assist in that regard?
That is a very interesting question, and one which I've asked that as well. And I'll tell you this: previously, before this budget, the designation of elite athlete funds was actually administered by the Bermuda Olympic Association. Okay. Now, what we have done, and if you break it down, we've made additional funds available, and you would be interested in how I said high performing athletes. So the high performing athlete piece will be a decision that will be a different criteria, and it will be decided by the director, myself, and maybe another panel of who is deserving of high performing athletes that may not actually come under the elite athlete pool, which is the funds that has traditionally been kind of decided by the Bermuda Olympic Association.
I'm glad you say that, because I would like to elaborate just a little bit more on that, because that's very interesting at the fact that can an elite athlete also qualify for high performance funding?
I don't have the answer for that right now. I'm always very honest with you. I'm not going to sit here and make fluff up for you.
Right.
But that's something that we're going to look at. But the key is, remember, go back to your headline. The headline is that additional funding has been made available for elite athletes and high performing athletes. So once we get into that, and I'll be honest, every single day I get emails from athletes that consider themselves to be high performing athletes. There's two in particular, and I will not call their name, that I have requests on my desk. And we as a department will look and see how is it that we can further assist athletes in Bermuda, whether they be elite, whether they be high performing, and even youth athletes.
Sure. Well, what we're going to do, we're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we'll have more of this discussion with the Minister of Sport, Mr. Darrell. We'll be right back.
John Barrett & Son is bringing us something fresh and exciting for the new year. Bai Antioxidant Infusion Beverage. Bai delivers the natural antioxidant benefits of the coffee fruit in glorious combination with a variety of exotic fruit flavors, with only 1 gram of sugar and 10 calories per bottle. The folks at Bai are inviting us on a world tour through these amazing flavors. Brasilia blueberry, Zambia Bing cherry, Costa Rica clementine, Malawi mango, Panama peach, Ipanema pomegranate, Kupang strawberry kiwi, and more. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
I'm also thankful and grateful because my greatest value of my life is my legacy.
But why I do it? I feel supposed to do it. I was put here to be here, to do what I'm doing right now. Once I see somebody moving, it's the greatest joy for me. There's a little person being born.
I am thankful that people have given me the trust, for me to empower them, from my players to my family to friends, and that's what I'm thankful for. I'm thankful that people have allowed me and trusted me to be in their life.
Welcome back. Well, Minister, recently you attended the ICC Americas Regional T20 qualifier in Argentina. What's some of the things you learned about the sport of cricket internationally whilst you were on that trip?
Well, I will tell you this, that part of the rationale for actually taking that trip to Buenos Aires with the director of sport was to actually see the standard that the ICC is expecting, because as you will be aware and the public will be aware, that we in Bermuda are hosting the next round of this ICC qualification to the T20 World Cup. And we were very fortunate to meet with the regional director. I think it's Ms. Farah Gossi, which many people in Bermuda are familiar with. We also met with the finance director, Ms. Andrea, I forget her last name at this time. And we also met with individuals from IMG who are actually putting on the broadcast while it's here in Bermuda. And to be quite frank with you, it was a worthwhile discussion having with them, because we were able to come up with ideas that the Bermuda Cricket Board can raise additional funds to assist the putting on of the qualification tournament in September. We were able to see the type of infrastructure improvements that are needed by the National Sports Center to make sure that we are up to par for this competition in September. And more importantly, I know you said, what did I learn? I will tell you that by everything that's come back, the support, the fact that we actually showed up in Buenos Aires to support the Bermuda cricket team, who, by their own admission, have not felt supported in the last couple of years. It meant the world to them that we were there and to see them perform at the level that they did. And we're expecting great things from them in the final qualifying round in September.
From the outset, I mean, we in Bermuda always try to have outstanding facilities and so forth. But looking around the grounds, we saw a lot of tents. We saw a lot of, outdoor, restrooms and so forth. So when you say what needs to be done at the National Sports Center, are you referring to structure, or are you referring to field? What are you referring to?
Well, I mean, one of the things is that what you can see from back in Bermuda, you can see the television coverage that was, or the internet coverage that was, the streaming coverage that was happening. The fact that you can actually see clearly what was going on around the grounds was actually one of the first steps that we needed to go. What type of infrastructure do we need to put in place so that the actual coverage of the event could be seen clearly across the world. So you may look past that and say, well, I saw they had tents on the side. I saw they had bathrooms. We also had a discussion. I mean, it's on record that the ICC at one particular time were not particularly pleased with the pitch at the National Sports Center. So before coming here and getting into that discussion, we wanted to know, have things improved? And happy to say that they have. Since the last time. And I know the high performance coach, Mr. Alan Douglas, is going to have a lot to say about getting that pitch ready for September. And I will also say this. We thought the exact same thing when we went. We thought that, if we can get Bermuda to a standard of where we are in Buenos Aires, Argentina, then we are sitting pretty. But the ICC officials made it very clear to us that the next round, they expect that the standard will rise. So we got some specifics as to where they want us to raise the standard, and I'm quite confident that the staff at the National Sports Center, the members of the Bermuda Cricket Board, and the Bermuda cricket base is going to make sure that we put on an awesome show.
Do we have an alternative venue because as you saw in Buenos Aires, they had two venues. So do we have a alternative venue lined up?
Yes, we do have two venues. Yes.
Okay. All right. That's good. Okay, so let's talk about what's next for the minister as far as sports in Bermuda. I mean, we've announced two Carifta teams, one Carifta Games team, one Carifta Swimming Championship team. So what are you looking forward to from these two groups of youngsters that go off every year and do rather well?
And you would have seen, and you mentioned in my brief earlier, Mr. Bazin, as to one of the things I did say is that the investment that we make in our Bermudian athletes is a sound investment, because as we've seen in recent years, I mean, on a grand stage, that Bermuda is typically always punching above its weight when it comes to competing on the international stage. And I don't expect that these recent two groups of athletes, Carifta athletes, young athletes that have been announced, I don't expect that they will do any different than what we've been doing in the past years. I mean, it even goes back, Carifta is celebrating 50 years, and you would know that Miss Debbie Jones Hunter, who works over in the Posada office, was part of Carifta many years ago. So Bermuda has long had a standard of competing well on the international stage.
What is happening with facilities wise? We know that currently right now there's nothing happening at the Bernard Park as far as netball. What's happening? What is the latest on that? If you can elaborate any.
Without going in too much detail, the Netball Association and all the females and young ladies that take part in netball, that is a very important part of sport in Bermuda. And I want to put it on record on your show that the government, the department is well aware of equity in sports. And the Bermuda Netball Association have been in constant contact with this department. And you will know that the budget year for the Bermuda government starts on April 1st. And I fully expect that you will notice some improvements to the netball, what do you call it? Courts. The netball courts, as well as some of the other facilities like the tennis stadium. You will see some capital improvements and infrastructure improvements to those very shortly.
Yeah, I was at the tennis stadium the other day and realized I hadn't realized until I looked up and they have no lights.
Well, I mean, daylight saving helped me a little bit with that. But yes, their lights are here, and we are just working to erect them safely. But they are here, and they will be going up shortly.
Well, that's a good sign. Any thoughts?
I'll just drop a little bit. There are some other exciting news that will be coming out of the national tennis facility or the tennis stadium very shortly as well.
I'm pretty sure I already have an idea what that would be, but I'll leave that for you to have your say in the House, or on wherever you have to make it. Now, actually, I want to ask this because you're, and I got to get your title right because you're a senator, and I mistakenly didn't mention that. But in the House, this is my personal view as a sports person, highly into sports. I see everybody else's ministry argued and discussed and so forth on the House floor on Fridays, except sport.
Well, I would say this, that about a week and a half ago, the junior minister who sits in the House of Assembly did a very good job of delivering the Ministry of Youth, Culture, and Sport brief. And there was a little bit of a robust debate back and forth about how funding is spent on sport. And just so your listeners know, I'm an appointed politician, and I actually sit in the Senate. And I sit in the Senate on Wednesdays. So because I am the substantive minister of, as you call it, sport, but it's youth, culture, and sport, because I'm the substantive minister, my ministerial statements are first read in the Senate. So a lot of people only listen to the House on Fridays. But if you tune in your radio tomorrow at 10 a.m., I can guarantee you that you will hear a statement from me. It's not specifically on sport. Tomorrow's one is actually on youth. But over the next couple of weeks, when the Senate is in session and we are debating the budget in the Senate, you will hear many very interesting statements on sport. One major one will be on Monday, where I'll be formally, announcing in the Senate the winners of the Bermuda Sports Awards, the annual sports awards, which are taking place, and this is a plug, this Saturday at Hamilton Princess. I'm sure you'll be there.
What's that?
I'm sure you will be there.
Man, I ain't got no invitation. I'm gonna call that office. I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Listen to you. You just couldn't help yourself, could you?
You know how it is. Well, of course, I'll be there. I'll be there to witness another celebration of our athletes.
Something you said. I don't want to take up the rest of your time, but you mentioned about the athletes that are going on to Carifta. And again, this is a plug for the Sports Awards, where we will be honoring many athletes and their accomplishments over the past sporting year at our annual Sports Awards this Saturday.
What time it start, you know?
It starts at 6:30. Oh,
okay. All right. I just don't want to be late. You know how it is.
Please don't.
Might not be able to get in, you know, when you guys close the doors.
I'll sit you right next to me.
Oh, no. I'm the back of the room guy. I'm the back of the room guy. And let's take another commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk to you about the announcement the finance minister made regarding duty-free for national sports governing bodies when it comes to international competition as far as uniforms. But we'll be right back.
I'm also thankful and grateful because my greatest value of my life is my legacy.
But why I do it? I feel supposed to do it. I was put here to be here, to do what I'm doing right now. Once I see somebody moving, it's the greatest joy for me. There's a little person being born.
I am thankful that people have given me the trust, for me to empower them, from my players to my family to friends. And that's what I'm thankful for. I'm thankful that people have allowed me and trusted me to be in their life.
Putting down the weapons.
Have you seen this?
Here's one of our favorite feature brands, true veterans of the food awareness movement. Bob's Red Mill, the U.S. leading miller of organic whole grain foods. Only whole grains have the entire value developed during growth. And once you try them, you know that this is the way food was intended to be. Try Bob's Red Mill blanched almond, whole wheat pastry, and artisan bread flours, and 1-to-1 gluten-free baking flour, unsweetened shredded coconut, gluten-free homemade wonderful bread mix, and a variety of rolled oats. Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
And welcome back. Well, Minister, during his speech in the finance minister, who's also the premier, said goods for Bermuda international sports teams, zero duty. Goods must be used only in connection with the relevant team sport by an international level athlete. That is, I guess, for the national sports governing bodies, something that would sound really, really well. I know, we had our discussion, and you had indicated it's more of a finance thing. But for the sporting bodies, how do you think they would receive that information?
I would like to think that any form of support, whether it be directly from the ministry responsible for sport, or in this case, the Ministry of Finance, when it comes to how they handle taxes, I think any indication that a national sporting body, let's take, because that's what we've been talking about recently, the Bermuda Cricket Board, for instance, any additional funds that they can actually keep in their pocket and use elsewhere should be a good thing. And this is where we talked about supporting sport. Supporting sport doesn't always just come in the form of a grant from the Department of Youth, Sport, and Recreation. In this form, you see it comes in tax relief. If you're bringing a sporting organization, the Ministry of Transport may give buses pro bono or ferries. So I'm happy to, be part of a government that in many different ways has actually shown tangible ways in which we support sports of this island. And you've just given a great example of how national sporting governing bodies are getting further relief.
Yeah. Now, this is something that is going back and forth with myself and others for quite some time. Would it also make sense for either the ministry, the government, to approach a company to come up with a national team kit? As I've noted earlier, we have 2 Carifta teams going out probably the same days, but they'll be dressed differently. When you look at a country like Jamaica, Puma outfits them, everyone, you wouldn't know what sport they're actually taking part in because they're all dressed as uniform. Wouldn't it make sense to try and work something of deal out with a company, one company, so we all look uniform, whether we're playing marbles as opposed to cricket?
Mr. Bezos, I'm going to answer this question like this. In my first official engagement as Minister of Youth, Culture, and Sport, I actually attended the Association for National Sports Governing Bodies annual general meeting. And I respectfully, and I'm not trying to push this off, but I think that this discussion would be better suited at that level because that is the place where all of the national sports governing bodies come, have an association. And I think that your idea, while it sounds like an excellent one, there may be other details that we may not know about. I mean, the 2 that you're talking about, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the same manufacturer, in this case, let's say Puma, as you said, I'm not sure if they make really good swim gear or if Puma makes really good cricket gear. I'm not sure. And I think that discussion should be first had with the association that is responsible for bringing the national sporting governing bodies together.
Okay, I think.
So I think, and I'll give him a plug because he does an excellent job. Mr. David Subir is the president of that organization, and I think that your question will be better suited at that level.
Well, let me ask you: would the government support that?
The government, as in most cases, will take advice and listen from any of the governing bodies of which we assist.
Okay. All right. Talk a bit about the relationship between you as the minister of sports. What is it? Youth, culture, and
Youth
sports.
culture and sport.
Okay. You can't. Well, you're in charge of one sport or sports.
Continue.
And we'll get past that. And the Minister of Tourism, when it comes to the BTA have been championing sports coal all around. I've noted that over the past, there's been some disconnect. They go out and bring in sporting events, get the national sports governing bodies to sanction the events, and then they run them. But I personally feel there should be a better relationship and understanding when we bring sports to Bermuda through the ministry. Would you agree?
Yes, and that's something that we have discussed. There will be a greater collaboration with the Bermuda Tourism Authority, as well as my colleague who's not part of the authority, but my colleague who's the Minister of Tourism. We're going to sit down and we're going to have greater collaboration as to how we can make those events kind of run a little smoother than you may have noticed in the past.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. And one of the things that stands out a lot, and I'm pretty sure you would have thought about this in your former capacity as a PE, or not a PE teacher, but as a teacher, as an educator,
Yeah,
as an educator. When it comes to school sports,
absolutely.
a lot of people honestly believe that there's a big gap in understanding what your ministry does and what the Department of Education do for sport. How can we work together to strengthen that and kind of get some understanding for the public's sake, or better understanding for the public's sake? Because I often hear from parents, oh, the Ministry of Youth and Sport is not doing anything, school sports is down the drain, those type of things. So I think there's a lot of miscommunication out there. How do we strengthen and make that understanding a lot better?
Well, I can start by saying again that with my colleague, the Honorable Diallo Rabane, the Minister of Education, we actually communicate quite often. And just today, we combined our schedules, or we looked at our schedules. So we are actually both going to attend the inter-school sports. I think the high school one is this Friday.
No.
Well,
They moved it.
okay, so we are going to attend the inter-school sports together, and I can tell you that exact discussion that you have had, we have been talking about. And there's the Bermuda School Sports Federation. They have a remit, and I know it comes under currently the Ministry of Education. And there are some, and I will say there are some that feel that it will be better suited with the Department of Youth Culture or the Department of Youth, Sport, and Recreation. Now, I haven't got a great announcement to say to you that we've decided that that's what's going to happen, or I can't even tell you that I think that may be the best course of action. However, I can say that, yes, there have been some discussions as to how the Department of Youth, Sport, and Recreation and the BSSF can work better together.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I think the more collaboration and the more information that is given, I think the public, the general public, will have a better understanding of what and how we can improve sport levels at the school level as well, which I think is important. And I just I do want to make a plug, because a lot of people don't realize the Bermuda School Sports Federation is a body of two, with the assistance of the PE teachers from each relevant school. But to be able to put on as many events as they do per year, I honestly think that they do a remarkable.
I'm so happy to hear you say that, because that's not where you started. But I'm sure they'd be happy to hear you give them credit for the amount of events that they do put on with the resources.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. But when I first started, it was because of the misunderstanding that a lot of people in the public health.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say myself. I said be public. So yeah, I mean, when we look at our, as you indicated, we punch above our weight when rather we're in these scenarios of different sports. We have our highs, we have our lows. Where do you see? Okay, where do you see us as when your budget comes into play next week after next?
Mhm.
How do you see us progressing through the challenges of everyday life? We have what we would consider sporting bodies that have quote unquote volunteers, presidents, secretaries, all volunteer people. I mean, most of the sports that are run are volunteer based. But how do you see the ministry assisting the volunteer side to ensure that they are meeting the standards that are needed, to facilitate their athletes?
Well, I'm not going to get into the weeds, but I can put in a plug for the senior sports officer, Mr. Jacon Adnis, as well as sports officer, Mr. Macy O'Deal, and the director of youth, sport, and recreation, Ms. Sharice Bean. And I know that they put in sterling effort to assist with organizations. There's a whole section as to volunteer management. I know if you would have attended, I don't know if you did, the long-term athletic development courses that they put in. Part of all of that is the entire running of sport. And I know that volunteers and the like, all sorts of things that go into the running of sport goes into that. And I want to commend them for the work that they are doing. And we talk about volunteers. We want to say thank you to all of the volunteers that work on these sporting bodies. And some are former athletes, some are parents of athletes, some are family of athletes, and some are just, fans of sport. So like you would have seen at the Magic Mile last week or a couple of weeks ago, you always have a very strong army of volunteers. And I know my department puts on workshops and the like to assist organizations in running their sporting bodies.
Yeah. We're going to take our final commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Bermuda Day, the first half of Bermuda Day, not the celebration part. We'll be right back.
It seems everyone knows someone who's lactose intolerant or just avoiding dairy products. And fortunately, there's a growing array of delicious and nutritious alternatives. Pacific Natural Foods have been doing things their own way simply and sustainably for over a quarter century, making non-dairy beverages with the finest possible ingredients right down to the packaging. Try Pacific Natural Original and Vanilla Hemp Milk and Almond Original Plant-Based Beverage, all sweetened or unsweetened, and low-sodium organic vegetable or chicken broth. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
I'm also thankful and grateful because my greatest value of my life is my legacy.
But why I do it? I feel supposed to do it. I was put here to be here, to do what I'm doing right now. Once I see somebody moving, it's the greatest joy for me. There's a little person being born.
I am thankful that people have given me the trust, for me to empower them, from my players to my family to friends, and that's what I'm thankful for.
Putting down the weapons.
You seeing this?
And welcome back. Well, Minister, this year will be your first year as Minister of Youth, Culture, and Sport. Bermuda Day, 3 big events in the morning. with the cycle race, the junior race, and then the senior race. What are you looking forward to as the minister this year? Being your first one overseeing one of the second largest event in Bermuda.
Well, I'll tell you this, that anyone that knows me knows that Heritage Day and all the activities that come with it, from early in the morning right until the very last Gombe troop that goes by. And I know we're talking on sport. Anyone would tell you that that is my favorite holiday. It has long been a holiday that I get on the side of the road very early in the morning. Even if you go back the night before to make sure I'm one of those get my spot ready type individuals. So as I said to people earlier, that I will be on my post early on Heritage Day to do what I've always done. So there wouldn't be anything different other than probably you may ask me for a few more interviews on the 26th this year than you normally have. But typically I will get there early and watch the runners go by. I will then make my way down to Bernard Park because as we all do, so we always have friends or family that you would like to get to the end and have a chat with them and congratulate them and maybe even assist in carrying their bags if they're having a hard time getting back to the car. So I look forward to doing that. I will admit that the organizers of the races, I have not had the opportunity to meet with them yet. But as we get closer to that time, I will be meeting with them just to see if there's any assistance that we as the department can do. I know something that kind of happens like clockwork now. So I will be on my post cheering as always, and I look forward to a great morning of sport on Heritage Day.
Yeah. Where's your post? Where you usually post up?
Usually I post up very early at Church Street. So as individuals are coming over the hill across Marketplace, usually myself and my crew, we do the best that we can to encourage them over that hump as they make their way down to Bernard Park.
Sure, that grueling hill from Queen Street all the way up. Yeah.
Absolutely. I've never participated, and no, Earl, I do not intend to start anytime soon.
I wasn't going to ask you.
But I do hear that that is a killer of a stretch for those that have come all the way from Somerset or St. George's.
Yeah, and this year we'll be from St. George's. What have you had any talks with both St. George's and Somerset regarding Cup match? I know both clubs, whenever they're hosting, start all their preparation probably December, October, November, December.
Interesting you say that. I have had discussions as recently as Sunday when I went to Wellington Oval, and I did have a conversation with the president of St. George's Cricket Club, Mr. Neil Painter. So those discussions with Cup match have started.
Well, that's good to hear. Well, may they be fruitful. Who's your team?
Cleveland County Cricket Club, sir.
What they won?
A couple of years ago, we did win the Eastern County Trophy, and as some people say, it is the best county in the world.
Well, some people do say that. Yeah. I mean, it's that's one.
Blue and white, Mr. Baston. Thank you.
You were blue and white. Nothing wrong with that.
Make your way at the end of summer down to Bayless Bay Cricket Club. You can sit in my camp and you can cheer for Cleveland County as we wrestle the trophy away from Bayless Bay.
I mean, when they held the trophy, they caused a bit of controversy at times, didn't they?
Mr. Baston, my team is Cleveland County Cricket Club.
And that's the sidebar piece. That we got to go on the sidebar. Make sure. But so for you this year, what are you hoping can be accomplished by sports in Bermuda? We've already mentioned the fact that we've got these Carifta games coming up, Carifta Swimming Championships. We know we're going to be hosting a full weekend of track and field in May. We know we have we're hosting the finals for the T20 Americas Regional, with the winner going to the World Cup. We know in a week's time we'll be hosting Guyana at the National Sports Center, Florida Southfield Stadium, and I want to ask you about that as well. But what are you hoping? What is your vision?
Mr. Basin, as I did say with the national sports governing bodies that we met with about a month ago now, I would like all sporting bodies to know without a shadow of a doubt that this government supports them in a multitude of areas. And if you send in a grant request asking for $1 million and I can't fulfill the number that you've asked for, I want them to at least know that we will do everything we can to support them in other areas to make sure that their participation in any sport is successful. So that's my main goal. I want to be visible. Will continue to remain visible. I will continue to support the hardworking staff that we have, and I've called them by name earlier. And like to make reporters like yourself and outlets like Island Stats proud to cover sport in Bermuda.
Well, I've been proud to cover sport for 23 years in Bermuda.
Continue to cover sport in Bermuda.
So on to the National Sports Center, because there's a lot of confusion. But a signage actually shows what the track part of the stadium is called. Can you just put it into perspective? What is the Southfield official name?
Okay, the official name of the South Stadium is the Flora Duffy Southfield Stadium.
Okay, that's the official name.
That is the official name, the Flora Duffy Southfield Stadium. Now, at the National Sports Center, we also have a field hockey turf. We also have the track, which has a distinguished reputation of being the track that Usain Bolt secured his Junior World 2004 Carifta record. We also have right in front of the grandstand the Brian Wellman runway, and that's for triple jump and long jump. We also have an event space that people just say under the tent. And then we also have the National Sports Center Northfield, where the actual cricket game will be played. And the building that overlooks that is actually referred to as the Sporting Pavilion.
Okay. All right.
And we have the Aquatic Center.
Yes. I do want to make mention, this facility that we're about to see is almost near completion.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
What is the timeline for this? The solar panels, as we will be able to tell in a minute, it's just a little bit left to do. They've done quite a bit over a short period of time. But what's the time frame? Have they given you an update?
First of all, I want to ask, how did you get that picture? Did you climb up on the diving board, or do you have one of them fancy, expensive drones?
I shall not reveal any of my.
I hope you weren't trespassing on the diving board, and if you were, I want to see you dive off one time. But
you missed it.
More serious matters. What you are sharing there for the individuals in your viewing public that do not know, that is the National Sports Center energy project, and it is in the form of a carport. So once it is complete, yes, that parking area will be opened back up, and we can park our cars underneath that facility, and they will remain dry. That is not the point of building it. The point of building is that, as you did point out, there are solar panels on the top of it that is going to produce 750 kilowatts of solar energy. And it is going to significantly reduce the cost of energy at the National Sports Center. The completion date will be this year, and I will be making a formal statement in the Senate in about 2 weeks. So I don't want to go too far, but yes, that is the National Sports Center energy project, which, as you rightfully pointed out, is nearing completion.
And I mean, for the sake of the general public, do you know how many car park spots will be under there?
It will be no less than what was there previously.
Oh.
So the amount of car spots hasn't changed.
Mhm.
All it is just put a cover over what was previously there. The main point is actually what is on top of that carport.
Mm. And we see the rest of the facility that you indicated. We'll see the aquatic center. We see the track and the hockey.
Yeah, there you go. That's everything I just spoke of. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the facility is starting to take shape, and we should see some movement of equipment away from there, and some normality back in that section. What about what's the latest with the lighting on the grandstand? I did ask you about it at your press conference, but what's the latest with that regard?
Specifically, which lighting?
The on the south field. On the south field. The light.
The lighting is the reason why, and you may or may not know that the Bermuda Football Association is hosting an international match in a couple of weeks or a couple of days now.
Mhm.
And it will be held in the daytime. And the reason is because we are actually in the middle of replacing the lights there from regular light bulbs to LEDs.
Yes.
So that is why that match particularly has to be held in the daytime, while everyone would know that it's not like just getting up on a ladder in your house and changing a light bulb based on what the wind is, what the wind direction is. It could be very dangerous. So changing those bulbs is a process that takes time and has to be planned out, which is why we've had to close down the stadium for night events for a little while.
And still we're working on a time frame of before the end of the year of having those replaced.
Soon, yes. Oh, there will be. Oh, the lights will be replaced in a matter of weeks. Yes.
In a matter of weeks. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So they've secured the high lift that they need, the higher lift that they need to get up there. Because if anybody would have been driving across the the north field a couple of months ago, they would have seen the transition being made from the old lights to the new lights, and the bucket that they had to use, or the crane they had to use, which was at the facility. I think it was almost a whole month getting those things up to par. Well, Minister, I do want to thank you very, very much for this evening, bringing us up to speed on what's happening within the Ministry of Youth, Culture, and Sport. And we look forward to more dialogue with you as the year continues. We look forward to, I'll give it a plug, Saturday night, where we will find out who the male, junior female athlete of the years are, as well as all the other winners, and celebrate the athletes for a year that they've had, and those who have supported sports throughout a number of years who will be honored as well. So looking forward to seeing you on Saturday night. I guess I have to tune in tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Oh, you said it's no sport tomorrow, right? Nothing on sports tomorrow, right?
I encourage you to tune in, and you might get a few surprises that you can create a headline out of, Mr. Page.
I don't create headlines. Headlines create themselves.
Well, tune in tomorrow at 10.
Okay. All right. Well, I do again want to thank you very much for your time, sir, and we'll be talking with you again shortly. Enjoy your night.
Thank you, Mr. Basin.
Okay.